Van would like to know, how to make entry and exits based on the ZigZag indicator. So since Van didn't provide any specifics, I'm just going to show you, just how to use the ZigZag indicator. So, so I already put the ZigZag indicator right on my chart here, and I did modify the default settings. So I set the value down to 0.1, so that way we get a few more zigs and zags on the chart. Right? Otherwise, I'm using the default points and the default faults here. Alright, and of course you can see I already have BloodHound added on my chart. Just for anybody new, to put BloodHound on your chart, right, you're going to look through your list of indicators and scroll down to the S's. Right, so BloodHound's under SI BloodHound, and you can just add that to your chart. Right. So once you add BloodHound onto your chart down here, you'll see there's a button up top. So this button is what you use to open up BloodHound. Just like that. There's our interface there. So, all right. So I'm going to kind of go through a general discovery process for figuring out how to use the ZigZag. Right. So don't consider this specifically for the ZigZag. I guess consider this this tutorial as kind of a discovery process. Because I see that when I'm looking at the ZigZag, interestingly, it is actually drawing a plot. If I open up the indicator, I can see there is this ZigZag plot, and I actually changed the color to sky blue so it show up on the black a little better. There's some indicators out there that actually draw lines, but this is an actual plot. So we'll see if we can actually read this plot. One thing I notice about it is that it goes from point to point to point. So there's a good chance that there's actually no data in between, right? So in between, say, this point and in between, this point here, I don't think there's actually any data that's readable in this plot, because it's just drawing a straight line, whereas like moving averages, flow with price. All right, so a moving average, gives you a price of that moving average for each bar, but the ZigZag doesn't look like it's providing, it's only providing a price point at each ZigZag point. I don't think there's any price data, in between here. So it's going to make it kind of interesting to, figure out how to use this indicator, because it's a little odd, a little different from the rest of indicators that use a plot. So I'm going to start off using the comparison. I'm just going to take a little guess here and start off by using the comparison. So let me give this a name. Alright, so the ZigZag, and so I'm going to start off and just do something simple like compare the closing price of the closing price to the ZigZag indicator. Alright, so I'm going to change my type to the closing price and change my indicator over to the ZigZag. Alright, so the only thing I changed from the default settings is I changed this to 0.1. Alright, so look here. I noticed that, look, this has a data series. It has the plot, and then it also has this data series with the ZigZag high and ZigZag low. So first, let's just take a look at the ZigZag plot and see what we get. So I click OK, and looks like I'm getting nothing. So all right, let's see what happens if we use this neutral output here. We'll put a 1 in there. Oh, take a look at that. So I just got something there. Let me zoom in here on the chart so we can take a closer look. Yeah, so let's take a look at this right here. Right, I can see if I look at these two zigzag points, right, I can see that the plot is actually equaling the closing price. Right, it's drawing that zigzag line on the closing price. So that's why this neutral works, right? This neutral is kind of saying, it's the same thing as saying A equals B, right? It's A equals B, in between these two values. And this value here is actually 0 ticks. So that would be, A equals B, within a 0 tick range. So it looks like this neutral is working here. So I'll turn off these other ones. And let's turn on the neutral for the short output as well. And so there, look, so we are getting, right, we are getting a signal. So we are able to read this just by using the plot, interesting enough. Let's see here, yeah. Actually, I'm going to turn my connection on. That way we can get some live data. I'd be curious to see how this indicator behaves on live data. So let's see. Oh, would you like to save your template? Yes, I need to save my template and give it a name. So I'll just use the standard workshop name here. Change the date. Okay. Yeah, interesting to see that the zigzag indicator, right, it's stopped plotting several bars back. I guess it looks like it's holding on to the lowest closing price for now. So let's see, how about I'm going to change this to 1 minute bars so maybe we can get some more data coming in. So let's I'm going to mark this spot right here, and I'll mark this spot right here, and we'll see, maybe hopefully oil, this instrument will work with this and oil will make a new high, and we'll see if the zigzag indicator moves over. So alright, let's see, looks like we need to refresh the chart to get the signals back on here. Alright, let me refresh the chart. And there we go. I just had to change something on the solver to get to get an output here from that solver. Okay, so we got our signals back. Alright, hopefully price will move a little higher and we can watch this indicator update itself in real time and see what happens. But in the meantime, if I open up the zigzag indicator again, right, let's take a look at these data series here for the zigzag high and the zigzag low, and let's see what we can get out of that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just copy this indicator, and I'll rename this now. So this solver is actually looking at the plots, I should say. And this solver, we're going to have it look at the data series. All right. So, since I am still working on the solver tab up here, right, as opposed to the logic tab. So I'm still working on the solver tab. So I can actually turn this other solver off. So that way we're only looking at this new solver here that is copied. And I need to go into the indicator. And so we're going to take a look at this data series. So let's see if we can get a long signal from the high and short signal from the low. Let's see what we get out of this. All right, interesting. So we're getting some different results. Yeah, so it looks like what we're getting in the data series is every time the plot updates, it looks like a price value goes into that data series. So that's probably why we're getting all of these signals here. Because if we were watching this indicator in real time, it probably drew a line down to there, and let me update this. It probably drew a line down to there, and then as the next bar closed, it made a lower close, and so it probably, the indicator would have updated the plot. And then price went up, price came down, but this closing price wasn't as low. But then we get to this bar, and it looks like price was equal, so it updated the zigzag plot. Looks like we updated the zigzag plot, updated the plot again. We got 3 closing prices all equal to each other in a row, so it just kept updating the closing price. Then it looks like when this bar happened, it made a lower close, so the indicator probably updated its plot again, updated its plot to a lower close. So I think that's probably why we're getting all these signals, and essentially all of these lower plots is what's getting stored in that data series. At least that's my guess. So all right, so let's see what happens here. Interesting. Price made a higher close, but the indicator didn't update itself. Let me take a look at this indicator. Let's see. Calculating a bar close true. All right. Yeah, I would have thought that this indicator would have, updated the plot and gone from like here up to here, since that's a higher close. Wow. Yeah, I'm not sure, how this indicator functions. So, oh, there we go. Now we finally got, cool, now we finally got this indicator to update itself. So, so the plot is like 1 bar behind, but the data series is 1 bar ahead of the plot. Yeah, it's a little peculiar behavior out of this indicator. Not sure what to make of it. Definitely, Van, you'll need to watch this indicator in real time with BloodHound, just try and understand its behavior. Let's take a look at the solver that's looking at the plot and see what we get. Yeah, there we go. So at least, so if we have BloodHound look at the plot, remember, I'll open up this window again. So we have BloodHound looking at the plot, and so we can see, right, the solver is matching when the plot updates itself. Yeah, so I'm not sure what to make of the data series. Doesn't seem like the data series matches the plot exactly. So anyways, that's how you can get a signal, right, out of the ZigZag that you can use in your system. Let's see. Let me make a logic template now, and we'll add a little bar direction filter. So alright, so I'm going to drop those existing solvers onto the board here. Alright, so here's a solver that's looking at the plot of the ZigZag. Let's connect that in. Alright, there we go. There's our signals. And let's add a little filter. Let's add a bar direction to this. And we'll connect the two solvers together with an AND node, like that. And let's see. Well, those signals are definitely kind of opposite of what we want. Let's check back here. Yeah, if we wanted, most likely we definitely want, a long signal down here. Right, we'd actually want to go long there, and most likely we'd want to go short there. Although in real time, it doesn't look like it's working out for us today. So, but let's work on reversing these signals here. So I think let's see. Yeah, Alright, yeah, actually inverting the bar direction did it. Alright, I just had to invert the bar direction. So let's take a look. Right, let's take a look at the ZigZag again, right? So remember, the ZigZag is giving us both long and short signal at the same time. So we can then use like a bar direction to filter out, one either long or short, one or the other. We can use this bar direction. And alright, so I took this bar direction and I just inverted its value. Most of the time, inverting the solver doesn't provide the type of output that you're looking for, but this is one particular case where it does. Right, so I can see this is actually a down bar, but I inverted the output, so I got a long signal. So we join those two together, and that actually reversed our signal directions. So, right, yeah, it looks like our ZigZag is updating itself like every third bar or something like that. So there's another signal there. Right. So I'll just mark all these places where that ZigZag's moving to. Alright. Here, let me kind of get back to reversing those signals like I did. So I'm gonna turn the invert off. Alright, so there's our original signals there. And so what I wanted to show you is that normally if you need to reverse your signals, Normally you're going to want to use, how about the inverter function node. So if we look at this inverter, right, you can see it has this swap long and short. So we're going to want to turn that on so we can swap the long and short. But at the same time, we need to turn the invert off. We don't actually want to invert. We want to reverse. So, all right, the swapping long and short is, same thing as reversing the signals. So we're going to want to turn these inverts off, like that. So then, if we connect these up, so there we go. We can see it. There we go. It reversed our signals here, or swapped them. All right. And we see if I turn the inverts on, if I turn them back on, right? Yeah, you can see that we get something totally opposite of what we want. So, that's why invert typically does not work for you. Let's turn those back off. Okay, so there we go. Like so. Okay, so Van, I hope that helps. Let's see. All right, so I've got a question here regarding multiple time frames and using the CCI indicator. All right, so let me add the CCI indicator onto the chart. All right, there we go. There's our CCI. Great. The question was asked. They would like to use two different time frames, right? 150 tick and a 250 tick. So let's see. I'm going to set my chart to a 150 tick chart. So you're going to want, if you're using multiple time frames, you're going to want to set your chart to the lowest time frame, right? That always works out better to look to higher time frames from a lower time frame chart. And so now in BloodHound, to look at what's going on the 250 tick chart, right? I'll just click on the chart button and set this up to the way I want it. There we go. And we want to look at a 250 tick chart. Okay. All right, so essentially we got our two time frames set up. So now let's build the CCI condition. All right, so one of the conditions is we want to know when the CCI is crossing the 0 line, and the other condition is we want to know when the CCI is crossing above 100 or below negative 100. All right. Let's see. I guess on both time frames. Yeah, it doesn't. The question didn't allude exactly, how, which time frame we're looking for which. So I'll just build the conditions here. So all right. So we're looking for. I guess let me back up. So we're looking for our CCI to cross these various threshold levels, right? So you can consider the 0 line, right, as a threshold level, and the 100 and negative 100 as a threshold level. So let me make this a little easier to see. How about If I make these a little bolder here, so I'll make that white. Set that to 2 dash. Set that to 2. I'll set that to white. And our 0 line, I'll set that to something a little different as well. How if we make that red? There we go. Okay, I think that makes it pretty obvious. All right, so our 0 line is the red line and 100 is the white dashed. All right. So I'm going to work. We'll start working on the default time frame here, right? The default time frame, which is our chart, the 150 tick chart. I'll start working. I'll start building the CCI solvers on the default time frame. So I'm going to make a new logic template. So this is going to be our CCI stuff. All right. So look here. So now you'll see that under the solver nodes menu, right, we have several different categories now, right? So we have existing nodes, we have our default time frame, and then we have our other time frame, our 250 tick time frame, right? So we can add new solvers from any of these time frames. So let's start with the default time frame, and let's see. So we're looking for essentially a crossover. Yeah, we're looking for a crossover. Let's plug that in. Let's expand this out a little bit. So we're going to look for the CCI to cross that 0 line. That'll be the first one, easiest one to build. Alright, CCI, I'm just using the standard period. So only one plot, so that's okay. And we're going to look for it to cross an absolute value, right? So the 0 line is an absolute value of 0. And there we go. We can see our charts updated there, right? All of our long and short signals whenever the CCI crosses that 0 line. So that one's done. That was pretty quick and simple. I should give this a name. Alright, CCI 0 line crossover. Alright, so let's work on the CCI crossing the 100 value. So I'll change the name first. Alright, let's plug that in. Right, change our indicator over to the CCI. And this time we're going to use an absolute value of 100. Alright, so we can see there, CCI crosses the 100, long signal, CCI crosses below, we get a short signal. You know, if we're only interested in when the CCI crosses above 100, right, remember we have this evaluate parameter, and I could set this to long only. So now all we see is when the CCI crosses above the 100. Those are the only crossover signals that we see. And of course we could just look at the shorts only and see when the CCI is crossing down, right? So alright, I don't know. So let's just say we're only interested in, you know, getting the long signals when it crosses above, right? So we're essentially going with the trend here. Okay, so that's for the CCI crossing the 100. Now we need to build, the same logic for the CCI crossing the negative 100, right over here where my cursor is. So let's drop another solver down here, another crossover. Give this a name. Right, so this is going to be the negative 100. Right. I guess I could clarify the name here. I'll just put a positive 100. And this is the negative 100 down here. Alright, since we've already done this a couple times, let me just go set up the CCI real quick. So call it OK. Alright, we're going to set this to an absolute value now of negative 100. Okay, so there we go. There's two crossings over here on the right side of our chart. Now let's just be consistent, and so for crossing negative 100, we're probably just interested in the shorts. So there we go. All right. Now, typically, right, typically you're going to want to join both of these solvers here together to get a single set of signals coming out of it. So normally, you're going to want to use the OR node. If I use this OR node, so now, right, I can see both the long and the short signals together whenever the CCI is crossing right 100 or negative 100. So, all right. So essentially that's it. But right, these are essentially the two different CCI crossings that I was given. And these solvers are all operating on the default time frame, right, which is our 150 tick chart. So now let's create another set here that are going to operate on the 250 tick chart. All right. So I clicked on my solver tab so I can see my time frames here, and what I can do is, right, I can copy this solver I've already made and move it down, right? So I just made a copy of that solver and I moved it on to my 250 tick time frame. So let me copy that solver and I'll move it down and do this again. I'll copy that solver and move it down. So now you can see, right, I have a set of the same solvers, but now they're operating on the 250 tick chart. So let's switch back to the logic tab, and I need to add those solvers to my logic board. So right under existing nodes, right, you can see I have my two different time frames. So my 250 tick time frame, I can see I have those three solvers now. So let me just go through and drop those on here real quick. Like so. And most likely I'll probably want to connect these two guys together again, just like I did above. So, alright, let's take a look and see what we get. Alright, so here's, alright, we're looking at the CCI, crossing the zero line, but it's on the 250 tick chart, right? So you can see up here in the top corner of the solver, it tells me what time frame that this solver is operating on. And so I can see when that CCI is crossing the zero line on that 250 tick chart. Right, there's a couple more crossings. And of course I could see when CCI is crossing the 100 and negative 100 on that 250 tick chart. So interesting. It looks like we're getting some correlations here between the two charts. So, all right. Let's say we want to, we want to make sure that these time frames are syncing up with each other. Let's see. So if I wanted to, so let's say I want to know when the CCI is crossing the 100, right, on my 150 tick chart, and also is crossing the 100 on the 250 tick chart at the same time. So if I want to see if my two different time frames are matching up, I could do something like this. Like so. And yeah, there I can see that both time frames are crossing at the exact same bar. Right there is a couple more at the exact same bar, so on. Right. I typically you would typically, right, the higher time frame, right, takes longer for your indicators, to cross over. So you might want to add a 1 bar buffer. So let me give you an example here. So okay, here's an example. So we can see, right, on the 150 tick chart, the crossover happened, 1 bar earlier, and it took the 250 tick chart, an extra bar to cross over. So let me show you the difference here. So if I look at, so I'm looking at the 150 tick chart, right? So we can see the crossover happened on that green dot, but the 250 tick chart, right, it took an extra bar, right? It was 1 bar late. So when they join these together, right, we can see there's no signal because they don't cross on the same bar. So what we need to do is like add an extra bar buffer. Actually, I'm sorry, we need to add an extra bar buffer on the 150 tick chart. So if we want to do that, we can use the look back node here. And what we're going to use is this displacement. Set this displacement to 1. So if I take a look at this, all right, you see how it shifted the signal, shifted it forward 1 bar, or it displaced it forward 1 bar. If I set my displacement to 0, right, you can see now the signal actually occurs on the actual crossover. All right, so if we set this look back with the displacement to 0, really look back's not doing anything right now. It's just a pass through. But we want to use a displacement of 1. So let's disconnect that. We can connect the look back up to the anode. Okay, so now we actually have a crossover signal here. So there we go. And we have some more. So let's see. Let's do a little more experimenting here. Yeah, look at this. So remember, right here at this point, actually, right, both time frames actually synchronize on the same bar, and we get a signal immediately. But if I look at if I look at this setup where we're actually displacing the 150 tick chart, look, we're getting a signal late here. We're getting one signal late. So we might actually, so we can solve that, I think, yeah, by using this look back, setting this look back to 2. And we need to change the mode. Let's see, the mode to maximum. Actually, no, you know what? That's right, since we're using the displacement. There we go. Yep, set our displacement back to 0, and we can use the look back instead and set the look back to 2. That way we actually get a signal 1 bar sooner. Now if I look back on my chart, right, I still get this signal back here, right? So all right, I think that's about as much as I can cover on this. So because I wasn't given any specifics. So all right, so John's asking a pretty interesting question here. So let's see, John, hopefully you can give me some clarification on your question. So John, my question to you is, when you say you're making changes to the indicator, are you mean that you're are you actually writing the code for the indicator and you're changing the code of the indicator? Is that what you're referring to, or are you just saying that you're like changing the periods? John's saying yes. Okay. All right. So John's got a technical question here for programmers. So John knows how to program, write some of his own indicators. So John's question is, he makes a change to his indicator that is used in the BloodHound template. So when John makes this change to his indicator, he's actually rewriting the code so that the indicator, calculates differently. So John's changing the code in his indicator, which is being used in BloodHound. Let's see, he goes on to say that BloodHound template is loaded and running in BloodHound. Does BloodHound automatically pick up the change made to the indicator, or do I have to somehow refresh the solver in BloodHound to get those changes that he made to be recognized? So yeah, so John, what happens is both BloodHound and NinjaTrader caches your indicator code, and in particular, BloodHound is caching, somehow it's caching how that indicator code. So the only way to clear that cache out is you actually have to, let's see, I think you actually have to shut down NinjaTrader. I know when I do that kind of stuff, I typically just close NinjaTrader out and open it back up just to make sure, closing NinjaTrader essentially, forces NinjaTrader to flush all the cached indicator data and the code. And so when you restart NinjaTrader, it's definitely using the new indicator code, without question. You might be able to take a shortcut and just close your workspace and reopen the workspace. That might do it, but I'm not positive. You'll have to do some testing to see if that works. But I'd say, typically the best thing to do is just to shut Ninja down and restart it in order to get those code changes to be recognized. So yeah, so actually answer your question directly, there's no way to refresh the solver. You just have to shut Ninja down to get that new code to show up. Andreas actually had a little sub question here that I haven't addressed yet. So Andreas had a little sub question here about mixing time frames, and so Andreas wants to know, can you mix tick charts and range charts? And yes, you can. However, there are some quirks when you do that. There are some things about NinjaTrader that you'll need to understand if you're going to do that. Okay, yeah. Let's see. I think you gave me an example of like a six range chart. So I'll change this to a 6 range, and once again I can take my solvers, make a copy, and move it onto that other time frame. Right? I'll copy this, now move it down to that time frame, copy that last solver there, and move it down. So now I have another set of solvers on my 6 range chart, and you'll notice that, look, when I added this 6 range chart to BloodHound, you'll notice that you're going to get this this message down here telling you to refresh your chart. Right? So refreshing the chart is necessary in order to get NinjaTrader to build this 6 range chart for BloodHound to use. So let's press F5 on the chart, update that real quick. Okay, now I can open BloodHound back up, and I'll go back over to my logic tab here, and let's actually just go ahead and open this wide open here. And so now when I look at my list of solvers here under existing nodes, now I have a 6 range time frame with those solvers that I just copied over to it. So let me just drop these on the board here. Oops. There we go. Okay, so just like so. Let me drop another OR node on here. And I could drop another AND node on here. And so now I can just kind of experiment, with a 150 tick chart and a 6 range chart. See if anything happens. So I'll connect that up, and let's see if we get anything. Well, look at that. We did actually get one signal there. And a couple of short signals there. So another long signal. We're getting a few signals, with these time frames matching up. All right, so let's see. Andreas, let's see. There's another workshop that you should watch so that you can fully understand kind of the synchronizing the issues with synchronizing 2 different time frames. Right, so I'm going to pull up my web browser again. Right, so remember I'm on YouTube's website here, and let's see. So if we type in BloodHound Workshop, and then let's see, how about multi-time frame. Yeah, all right. Here's a good one, Andreas. This one here, synchronizing the higher time frame Renko charts. Yeah, this is a good workshop that I go into quite a bit of depth into explaining how NinjaTrader operates when it's trying to synchronize two different time frames. You know, it doesn't matter if it's tick to tick or tick to Renko or tick to range. You know, the synchronizing issue is still the same. You know, but in this particular video, I use the Renkos because the Renkos are probably the most difficult to try and synchronize between time frames. So that's why I use the Renkos as my example. But really, it's the same whether you're using minute to tick, minute to range, whatever you want to mix and match. So watch this so you get a full understanding of what you're going to have to deal with, right? And so in my example, I used this look back node to help compensate for that synchronizing issue. So you might need to use some more of these look back function nodes there. All right, yeah, Ken's got a nice basic question here. So Ken is asking, how can any moving average be shown, rising or falling, via the slope somehow? That would be correct, Ken. Yep. So we'll use the slope solver to determine how a moving average is rising or falling. So let's see. So let me add a moving average to my chart. How about if I use a little more exotic one like the HMA? Yeah, I'll add the HMA. All right, 21 period. Let's see, cyan. How about if I make this guy green? I already have the blue zigzag on my chart. So let's pick on green here. Okay, so there's a green HMA on the chart. So I'm going to make a new logic template here. All right, a moving average, rising or falling. So I'm going to put I'm going to put this moving average on the default time frame. So we're going to use the slope solver here. And so you can see that all the solvers have to default to some kind of indicator, right? So you probably noticed by now that all the solvers have defaulted to the SMA 14. So let's change this over to the HMA like so, and I'm just using the default period, right? There's only one plot here, so that's good. Those settings are good, and there we go. It's pretty much that simple, right? So we can see as soon as the moving average starts falling, right, we're getting a short output. So yeah. Let's see. That's since I have a bunch of time frames on here, right? I can see, I could take a look at the HMA on the 250 tick chart. So let's do that. So there's a solver there. Let me zoom in a little bit. That way we can see what's going on here. And before, let me back up and give this a name, right? So this is the HMA 21 slope. All right, this will be the same thing. The HMA 21 slope, but it's going to be on the 250 tick chart. Let's connect that up. All right, and change my indicator over to the HMA. All right, I'm going to just leave that period as it is, and there we go. So now we can see the moving average on the 250 tick chart. So we can see that the HMA only looks like it only went short for just 1 or 2 bars. There we go. And I could also do the same thing for the 6 range chart. Let's take a look at that. Okay, there. Looks like we got a little different results on the 6 range chart. Yep. Alright, Ken, I hope that addresses that question. Alright, Ken's got another question here. Can the CCI or stochastics from, say, the lower 150 tick be put on the higher 250 tick chart? Yes, it can, Ken. But there are some issues associated with getting those two different time frames to synchronize. So Ken, there's a workshop video that discusses that. Oh, there we go. Let's bring that Chrome up. So I'm going to just change my search term to the I think lower time frame. All right, yeah. So the first BloodHound workshop video that comes up, right, preventing a trend fake out, but then there's also and using a lower time frame chart. So it looks like this video is going to discuss the the synchronizing issue and using a lower time frame chart. Typically, I would just say, I guess it helps if I spelled lower correctly. You really should stay away from looking at lower time frames. Things do not work out well with NinjaTrader looking at a lower time frame. Let's see. So there's one way to search for it, or sometimes I abbreviate this, right? LTF, HTF for a higher time frame, and LTF for lower time frame. Let's see if there's something else here. Actually, this previous video here, synchronizing the higher time frame Renko charts, I also do discuss I guess the issues with looking at the lower time frames, right? So yeah, so there's two good videos there to watch. All right, good. Eldon snuck a question in here. Is there a way to incorporate a moving average slope angle into NT's into Ninja's moving average slope box multi-indicator? I didn't know that NinjaTrader had a MA slope box multi-indicator. Let me take a look on my chart. Yeah, no, Eldon, it looks like that is a third-party indicator that you're listing there. Let's see. All right, let's see. Ken, looks like Ken has that indicator. Ken is saying yes, it shows it in degrees. Let's see. Is there a way to... So, well, all right, Eldon. So, sorry, I can't speak to that indicator directly, but I can explain. Really, when someone says they can convert an angle to degrees, to me that's really misleading. For example, all right, let me just draw a line on my chart. All right, let's say I've got a line on my chart, and for okay, I'm kind of guessing that this is like a 45-degree angle. Pretty close to a 45-degree angle. And let's see, I don't use the drawing tools very much, but let me see if I can all right, use the pen drawing tool. Oops, Well, that was bad. Okay, let me redraw that line there. And I'll change the color here. Let me change the color to red. Okay. Oh. Alright, let me redraw this again. Okay, there. Alright, so I got the red line, the white line on top of each other. So now, look what happens at, shoot, that line went away. Okay, well, in any case, look, if I scroll forward, you can see that the angle of that line changes. Right? Look how steep that line's getting now. Right? So look, if I do this, look, I'm flattening it out. So, who's to say, what is the correct scaling on price? And, who's to say what's the correct scaling on the width of the bars? Look, I just flattened that line out. So, correctly, there is no such thing as measurement in degrees on a chart. Right? You can't measure degrees on a chart because of the scaling factor. Right? There is no set scale factor on a chart. It's whatever you decide to work with. Also at the same time, it all depends on how price is price action on the chart. If price kept moving up, it would just flatten this line out even more. So the way you measure an angle on a chart is you measure the angle simply by looking at the price movement. So you just measure, how much, you measure how many ticks an object moved on the Y scale. All right. So really, an angle on a chart is purely just the movement in the Y scale. Let me stretch this out just to kind of give an example. So let's say we want to measure the angle that price had moved, right, from the closing price to the closing price. We want to measure that angle. Really, the only measurement there is in the Y direction. Oops. Right. So you can only measure price movement. And the reason why is because that from bar to bar to bar, the X movement is always fixed to 1. Right? There is no measured distance. From bar to bar, it's an absolute distance of 1. So when you go measure from one bar to the next bar on the X-axis, that's always 1. There is no variance from bar to bar. So therefore, you're only left with a variance in the Y-axis in price movement. Only price varies. So really, you're only measuring you can only measure an angle on a chart in ticks or in points. So that's why if you look at any one of these slope solvers, you can see that we default the slope that you're looking for in ticks. So really, you can measure a slope in points or in ticks. You know, you do have these other measurements, but they're just variances of tick movement. You know, it's just different ways of analyzing how many ticks of movement a moving average, you know, moved. I guess that does it for today. Good deal. All right, everybody. Have a good weekend, and I hope to see you next Friday. All right, bye-bye.